Aid groups are raising concerns about the dire situation in Sudan. UNICEF reports an estimated 5 million children have been displaced in the ongoing civil war, making it the largest child displacement crisis on Earth. Tens of thousands have been killed and millions forced from their homes since the fighting between Sudan's military and paramilitary leaders broke out last April. Now, aid groups say the country's overcrowded displacement camps lack adequate shelter, sanitation, and healthcare services, putting children at greater risk of malnutrition and disease. UNICEF spokesperson Tess Ingram joins me now from Gedaref, Sudan, for more on this. Tess, thank you for joining us. Talk to me about what you're seeing there. What are the biggest issues affecting Sudanese children right now?
As you said, this is really at its heart a displacement and protection crisis. We're seeing the world's largest child displacement crisis in Sudan. There's more children on the run here from conflict than anywhere else in the world. 5 million children fleeing their homes right across the country. And where I am here in the east of Sudan, it's a place where children are coming to, seeking safety and living in displacement camps. I spent time at some of those camps in the last few days and sat down with children to hear their experiences. And really, Diana, it is harrowing. Every child had a different version of the same terror of having to flee their homes as the fighting descended, of their homes being looted, of threats of violence, including sexual violence, and of course of loved ones being killed. So this really is a protection crisis, a displacement crisis, and then on top of that, we're seeing issues with humanitarian agencies like UNICEF being able to deliver aid, and that's resulting in a humanitarian crisis on the ground as well.
What are the people at these displacement sites telling you about the conditions there and how they're coping with all of this?
I think the first thing to note is that the children of Sudan are brilliant. They're intelligent and resourceful and hopeful for their future. I'm really inspired by the conversations that I've had with them this week after the hardship that they've experienced over nearly 20 months of war. Yesterday, I was in a group of 11 girls, all about 15, 16 years old, and they were telling me of their journeys to here to Kassala and Gedaref, the area that I'm in. And there was this one girl, Montana, who's 15 years old, who told me about hiding in a cupboard while soldiers raided her house because she was terrified that they were going to take her because they said, "We're looking for girls." And next door, they threatened to take her friend and neighbor. So she had been through a very scary event, but she was now in this displacement site, supported by UNICEF, receiving mental health and psychosocial support and back learning in school. And I asked her, "What do you want now?" And all she said was, "Stop the war."
So what kind of aid is UNICEF providing, and why has it been so hard to get that aid to those who need it?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it really has been difficult. Sudan's an enormous country, and the needs are great. We need to bring people water, nutrition supplies, clothes, all sorts of things. And getting across the country requires us to get permission, and we are not able to get that government permission to access all areas. So the families that are within areas where the fighting is particularly intense or where UNICEF hasn't been able to get permission to reach, they're really struggling the hardest because they haven't been able to get that life-saving aid that they need. And one example is a place called Zamzam, which is a displacement camp in the west of the country, and their famine has been declared. We already know that children there are starving, that they desperately need these nutrition supplies, and of course famine looms in other parts of the country. So it's really critical that we get those government permissions to move across Sudan to bring children this life-saving aid wherever they need it.
And UNICEF says the national vaccination coverage dropped from 85% before the war to approximately 50%, some areas even as low as 30%. How worried are you about that?
The outbreak of diseases is also a real threat for children here in Sudan. Cholera, malaria. It's scary because of that decline in vaccination coverage because of the war. And also because of the destruction of health services. We've seen, more than 150 schools and hospitals attacked as of the beginning of October this year. And, health services, water points, marketplaces, they've also fallen victim to the fighting. And without these essential services, like healthcare, like hospitals, children really are vulnerable to the outbreak of diseases, particularly if they aren't vaccinated. So UNICEF has been bringing in vaccines, and we are trying to get those across the country. But again, we need the safety, the security, and the permissions to be able to do that.
All right, UNICEF spokesperson Tess Ingram, thank you.